Sorry about that. My phone crapped out on me. It maxed out its memory. So I bought Joseph Newman's book for like $400 on my Social Security income. Barely. Boy, did I suffer after that for buying it, but it was worth it. I read the book. I read the chapter on Dr. Hastings, a physicist who analyzed the Joseph Newman table model version. He gave all the parameters of its behavior and construction, and I crafted that in LT Spice simulator, and then I ran it, and I found it was not over unity. It did not deliver half an ampere back to the battery pack like Dr. Hastings had documented. So then I funkied around with the parameters, and I realized only one would create that condition, and I did it. With 100,000 cycles per second, rotation speed of that bar magnet, or that bar of iron acting as a magnetized piece of steel, I managed to create half an ampere going back to the battery pack. The battery pack was 360 volts. 660 volts would accumulate on the coil, and I put in the capacitor as Joseph Newman suggested would reduce arcing, and it did. And then I discovered that if you put in a neon bulb in series with that capacitor, it helps even more. And that's something Joseph Newman could never have imagined, because he put his fluorescent bulb in parallel with the massive coil on another coil of its own that's much smaller. And that, he found, would enhance the outcome. He was just doing that to show that the coil was energized, but in any case, putting a little neon bulb in series with the massive coil and its capacitor helped even more increase in efficiency and reduce arcing. And I put in the self-shorting of the coil during the last either 15 or 20% of its duty cycle to reduce arcing. You know, I did all the things Joseph Newman said, and I made improvements that he could not have possibly imagined, because he was not, simulators didn't exist back then when he designed his circuit, and simulation really helps. It helps speed up the evolution and development of your circuit, the amount of time it takes, because you can do a lot of progress in a very short period of time. No cost to yourself, no danger of electrocution. It's really cool. Anywho, so I did all this simulation work, and then Byron contacts me and tells me, dude, you were correct. Your simulations are valid and your conclusions are valid because I gave him the secret, and he kept the secret to himself, and he only showed off the secret version without telling everybody that that was a secret version. Instead claiming, oh no, build it the old way that's not over unity and just make it bigger. And it's a lie. So what the perpetual motion holder is telling me is that it's telling me what's going on inside the plasma. This is what's going... See, I looked up, when Byron first told me, I didn't realize, hey, we got this all the time. It's called gas discharge tubes. They're called negative resistors. Once the voltage breaks down, the current increases to a phenomenal degree. I didn't realize that yet. So what I did was I looked up helium. How does it behave when it's subjected to an electrostatic field? And it emits an electromagnetic field of its own, which I then imagined to myself, or speculated to myself, must be of a certain frequency, the frequency that is required to make Joseph Newman's motor over unity. So we've got a complex, because the simulation I did had a complex waveform. It had the low frequency square wave coming from the battery pack, coming through the commutator. In addition, it was added the high frequency coming from the rotating magnetized piece of steel acting as a momentary or temporary bar magnet. And it created a blend. It was slightly like a sine wave, slightly like a square wave, but it was a complex waveform because of the two frequencies involved as well. And that created over unity and sent half an ampere back to the battery pack. And also the massive torque coming from the flux of the massive coil of Joseph Newman's motor. All because of this secret of replacing the bar magnet, or the magnetizable piece of steel rotating in the center of that massive coil, with a canister of helium. The canister has to be made of a plastic material because helium passes through glass. Neon does not. You could use glass with neon, but you have to use plastic. So Newman used a sewage pipe. You know, they're 6 inches in diameter or thereabouts, and then he puts the end caps on to keep the helium in there. And he might have, see, if I do it, I would have used balloons to compartmentalize the insertion of the helium so that it doesn't move around too much, and also to encapsulate it so it doesn't leak, so you get an extra safety factor of encapsulation. I would have used, because, you know, plastic rubber balloons are plastic, and so the helium can't pass through them, and they can't pass through the sewage pipe, the PVC material of the sewage pipe. So you put it in there, and then he wrapped, this is the way Byron described it to me, and he says, you know, these experiments come out of the 1800s. They've known about this for almost 200 years. Who thinks about it, though, or admits to it? So Newman wrapped the PVC pipe with an open coil. That means the two terminals, the two ends of the coil, do not go anywhere. They're just, you know, you seal them off. And then he wrapped the whole thing with either tape or pitch to hide the fact that it was not a bar magnet. So in the videos, you see this black object that's, you know, cylindrical in shape, rotating in the center of his massive coil, and you think, oh yeah, that's the bar magnet Joseph Newman keeps talking about. No, it's not. It's a PVC canister of helium wrapped with an open coil. Now the open coil, picks up the electrostatic charge of the massive coil that he's energizing, okay, with the help of his battery pack, charging up that coil, amassing 660 volts. And the open coil surrounding the PVC tubing picks up that electrostatic charge, and it alters, it varies what it picks up because it's rotating. So now it's got a varying electrostatic charge in the open coil, subjecting the helium to that varying charge that it's picking up. And the helium responds with a varying electromagnetic field of its own that is highly excited because the atoms of helium, the breakdown voltage of helium is 65 volts. Yet the open coil surrounding that helium is getting charged with 660 volts. So you can imagine the breakdown voltage point has already been surpassed. The helium breaks down. The negative resistance turns on inside the helium, the switch of negative resistance, and it starts vibrating like heck. Because it's a plasma, it's ionized. You can imagine what frequency it must be vibrating at. The sun, you know, the ionized neon and the ionized silicon in the atmosphere of the sun, the plasma atmosphere of the sun, is vibrating at a very high rate. And it's doing the same thing, the helium inside the Joseph Newman device is becoming excited at a very high frequency, plenty to give over unity. This is the secret. Now, so Edward Leedskalnin's perpetual motion holder describes what's going on. What you've got is a perpetual motion holder in the middle, inside an ionized plasma. So long as the voltage is kept above the breakdown point of that noble gas, you know, be it argon, neon, helium, whatever the noble gas is. You know, you look on the periodic chart of the chemical elements, and you look at the column of noble gases. They're all the way to the right. You look down the column, and it gives you all the different options you have available to yourself. Helium, argon, neon, there's several. There's more than that. Those are the only 3 I recall off the top of my head, because they're at the top of the column. They're the lighter elements. Any one of those will do. They all have their, to one degree or another, they all have their voltage breakdown point. And all you have to do is reach that point and surpass it a little bit, and now you've got a negative resistor. You know, the whole Wikipedia article on negative resistance, gas discharge tubes, they all respond in the same manner. Namely, they embody the principle of Edward Leedskalnin's perpetual motion holder and magnetic remanence in which you've got magnetic flux perpetually going on in there, artificially induced or maintained because the voltage breakdown point has been reached. And because it's not a piece of iron, and so we have to induce it and maintain the inducement. It's not for free. We have to exert a little bit of effort to maintain the inducement, and then we've got all that magnetic flux vibrating at a high rate, creating all of this current at a high frequency. Now it's all about frequency. See, we forget there's like 6 different pillars to electrical reactance that I make use of when I simulate, that I have available as an option. I have capacitance, I have inductance, I have frequency, I have phase relation, and I have duration. That's 5. Okay, 5. I thought there were 6. Maybe I forgot one. And any one of these factors I can vary in a free energy circuit to vary the outcome, if I make those options available to myself. If I don't make them available, I'm screwed. I'm screwing myself by not providing those options. The more options I have, the more latitude I have for varying the outcome of the circuit and adapting the circuit to whatever circumstance I need to adapt it to, perform to. Now, so Edward Leeds-Skolnin's perpetual motion holder describes the mechanics, the functional mechanics of an ionized plasma, which is what's going on inside of Joseph Newman's motor, in secret. And he took it the secret to his grave. Oh, he was so miserable. If you don't share, there's no happiness if you don't share. Of course, you know, patents, we have to do that, you know, keep it a secret in order to make money. And then somebody shelves the over-unity device and we never get the benefit, and the inventor walks away with the money if they buy into that. And I might do that, you know, I could use the money and then just build it for myself. And a few of my friends, but never commercially, because, you know, if somebody buys it, exclusive rights, I won't be able to, will I? Be that as it may, because, anywho, if I did this 40 years ago, it would have been different, but I waited too long. Whatever, that's a whole nother story. So this is my follow-up 2-part videos. Now that I've seen this other video that's much older, I needed to make this comment because I could see the video was done at a time when I did not know the secret. And so here it is. Here's the secret, you know. It's a very fundamental secret that can be used in all of our circuits to enhance performance. When we make use of a spark gap, such as a gas discharge tube filled with either a noble gas or another, we make use of a component, an electronic component that is very useful. It's very fundamental in how it operates. You can't use it all by itself. You have to use it in combination with other components such as capacitors and inductors and resistors, but it is very useful indeed. That's what I have to say.